The United Nations accuses Houthis of targeting Baha'i minority and spreading hate speech against them. On National Press Day, Yemeni journalists continue to face oppression and harassment nationwide. Diseases hit displaced camps in Ma'rib amid lack of healthcare services. Good evening. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. I am Abir Ali and you're watching the English news. The United Nations condemned the Houthi targeting of Baha'i religious minority and spreading hate speech against them. This comes after the Houthi Grand Mufti attacked the group during Friday's ceremonies and confirmed that the detaining of 70 members of them. This report has more.
The Baha'i international community expressed deep concern after the Houthi Grand Mufti Shamsuddin gave a sermon filled with disinformation and hate against Yemeni's Baha'i population. The lengthy sermon, delivered on June 2nd, primarily targeted the Baha'i community. The sermon was not only delivered in the mosque, but was also broadcast on the internet, magnifying its effect. This incident followed a May 25th attack when armed and masked Houthi gunmen stormed a peaceful Baha'i gathering. The armed Houthi forces stormed a private residence in Sana'a, where Yemeni Baha'is had gathered to elect a national governing body, according to the Baha'i international community, which represents members of the faith worldwide. 17 Yemeni Baha'is were apprehended. The Houthi authorities have yet to respond to the family members' demands for information. While one individual has been released, serious questions remain regarding the health and treatment of the remaining inmates. The Grand Mufti verified the detention of the 17 Baha'is by security forces, but he seized the opportunity to level false accusations against the community. He claimed that the Baha'i community is supported by foreign powers, accusing them of hatching malicious plans against the nation. The Mufti said in a sermon that the generous support of Britain, America, and Jewish people is responsible for the spread of the Baha'i faith. He went on to refer to the Baha'is as dangerous and accused them of misleading the public. This surge of hate speech echoes statements made by Houthi commander Abdul Malik al-Houthi in 2018. In which he branded the Baha'is as a satanic organization against Islam. Bani Dugal, the representative of the Baha'i international community to the UN, criticized the Houthi government for fueling insecurity and instability in Yemen by inciting their suffering populace against innocent Baha'is. She noted that while countries around the world would strive for peace, the Houthis continue to abuse the rights of Baha'is and other minorities in Yemen.
The Abductees Mothers Association called for international pressure on the Houthi militia to release 17 followers of the Baha'i sect, including 5 women. They condemned the enforced disappearance of 17 members of Baha'i sect, including 5 women, by the Houthi group in Sana'a, the Human Rights Association said in a statement. The statement indicated that the victims numbered 17 people, including 5 women who were in a meeting to choose who would take care of their humanitarian and community affairs. On Journalism National Day, journalists continue to face harassment and oppression, especially in Houthi-controlled areas. This report has more.
9 years ago, press freedom witnessed its worst phase, and the Yemeni Journalist Syndicate has documented a number of cases. Violations of freedom of opinion and expressions committed by the Houthis is done through harassments and threats, as journalists suffer in various Yemeni governorates, the most recent of which were the enforced arrest against 3 journalists in Ma'rib.
I
think the worst period for Yemeni journalists has been the last 9 years. The war has affected journalists. They face many challenges in Yemen and their lives are the price.
Real challenges and risks facing journalists in Yemen is due to political divisions in the country and widespread corruption. Journalists in Yemen suffer a bitter reality and a real disaster as a direct consequence of the lack of respect for freedom of expression and fear of the press and journalists in particular. Since the Houthi coup, the situation became more complicated for journalists due to the iron grip of the Houthi group and its dealings with the media, which amounted to forcing them to publish propaganda that incites war.
The situation of journalists and freedom of speech speech in the country is really terrifying. Journalists can't do their jobs. This is happening due to the war and lack of awareness. There is no freedom of speech in Houthi-controlled areas or in other areas as well.
Journalists in Yemen are also subjected to a campaign of incitement that has undermined the public's trust in the press and newspapers. Yemen is the worst freedom of press worldwide, so this requires international organizations concerned with human rights and the press to interfere and to stop the threats and violations against journalists in Yemen and guarantee freedom of opinion and expression.
An official report revealed the displaced of 345 Yemeni families during May. In its monthly report, the Executive Unit for Managing Displaced Camps said that 265 families were displaced for the first time. They indicated that 24% of these families were displaced from Taiz Governorate, followed by Al Hudaydah with 23%. Diseases had displaced camps in Ma'rib Governorate amid a lack of healthcare services. Also, the cuts made the world agencies has made a situation worse. This report has more details.
Yemenis have been forcefully displaced in their own country for 8 years, anxiously anticipating the restoration of stability and peace so that they might return to their homes and reintegrate into society. Many displaced families are forced to live in these displacement camps out of sheer necessity. Stranded far from bustling cities, these shelters lack basic health services due to their remote locations, as aid organizations find it difficult to reach the campsite. Recently, several diseases have spread significantly among the displaced due to the lack of health services, exacerbating their humanitarian situation.
Healthcare services are lacking and medical cadres are understaffed. Malaria medication is also absent and dengue fever has spread rapidly throughout the camp. Electricity outages continue to sweep the camp, exacerbating sick, internally displaced people's conditions. Sometimes, patients would stay in hospitals for up to a week and never receive treatment.
IDPs pay exorbitant costs to access government facilities and receive health care. Their financial situation remains far below the poverty line, and the absence of salaries makes it difficult to cover the high cost of living. Accessing health care is a hefty and expensive task for many families, as hospitals are dozens of kilometers away.
We've proposed some solutions to tackle the issue of absent health care within remote campsites. We could establish permanent medical centers within the camps or set up mobile clinics that operate around the clock. With the rapid rate at which dengue fever is spreading, more needs to be done to deliver health care to internally displaced people.
The absence of health care has had a devastating impact on more than 116 camps east of the city, where thousands of families are suffering and are now in desperate need of immediate aid.
بن ثياب نشطط يعني ثياب نروح عن القرى نحوس وهذا نروح بثياب ونصلحها مآولنا وكراتين من الشوارع. والله إن احنا نكره المطر. يخسع لنا البطانيات، يخسع الفراش، يخسع الجماش، نسمر برادة، خاسعين احنا وجهالنا.
فالمأوى الانتقالي هذا الكنتيرة جعلتهم يعيشوا في استقرار للمستفيدين من ناحية سواء من ناحية الأمطار أو من ناحية العواصف والرياح والرملية، بما أنه عندنا هنا في مأرب الرياح بتكون شديدة.
Two civilians from one family were killed by Houthi mine explosion in Ajaf Governorate. Local sources said that the citizens were killed as a result of a mine explosion planted by the Houthi north of Ajaf. The incident comes about 2 weeks after a similar incident in Al-Maslub district in the west of the Governorate, which claimed the lives of 2 children and injured their father, mother, and third brother. Today, government forces shot down 2 Houthi drones in Ma'rib Governorate, northeastern Yemen. Field sources indicated that the government forces shot down the 2 marches belonging to the Iran-backed Houthi terrorist gang at the Mashra front west of Ma'rib Governorate. This came while they were flying over the positions of the government forces in light of the preparation of the Iranian-backed terrorist Houthi gang to attack the city of Ma'rib from several directions, according to informed resources. Foreign Minister discussed with the Norway counterpart the bilateral relations between the 2 countries. The 2 sides discussed the negative positions of the Houthi militia towards the peace process and its frustration of peace efforts, putting obstacles in the way of ending the war. The 2 sides reviewed the achievements made in implementing the National Plan for Women, Security and Peace and the Norwegian government's continued support for the plan to achieve its goals. Coming up in the news. Houthi summer camps infect minds of Yemeni youth. Welcome back. Experts in the World Bank said that Yemen needs more support to protect the value of the rial. This report has more.
Economists from the International Monetary Fund confirmed that Yemen is in urgent need of external support in order to relieve pressure in financing and reduce monetary financing in order to protect the exchange rate and price stability, which has been achieved with great difficulty. Experts said further improvements in governance are necessary, along with efforts to address gaps in data, particularly in terms of domestic and external debt, to enhance transparency and ultimately help stimulate more financing. A team of IMF experts conducted virtual and face-to-face meetings in Amman with the Yemeni authorities. It included discussions of the latest economic developments, future outlook, and progress achieved by major reforms in Yemen. The government side participated in the discussions, represented by the Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank of Yemen, and representatives of the Ministries of Planning and International Cooperation. The mission held extensive discussions with the Yemeni authorities and donors to improve coordination of activities and prioritization and sequencing, stressing that the International Monetary Fund continues to provide comprehensive technical assistance to Yemen to further strengthen institutional capacities. The mission reaffirmed the importance of continuing close communication with donors on capacity development to fill remaining gaps while increasing the availability of more funds. The mission issued a statement after the end of the mission's visit and its meeting with the Yemeni authorities that the economic and humanitarian crisis is present in Yemen, despite cautious optimism about the ongoing peace process, explaining that current estimates indicate that 70 million people will face acute food insecurity.
The Undersecretary of the Ministry of Transport were briefed on the progress on the ongoing work of implementing Adala Road. The Director of the Public Work Office in Adala and other officials opened the way for the movement of citizens and vehicles. Residents of the neighborhood of At-Tawahi district in Aden Governorate complained about the concurrent power outages Residents reported of the power outages increased from 3 hours to 6 hours, compared to 2 hours for power generation within 8 hours. Power outages exacerbated the suffering of the population with the onset of summer and the rise in temperature with humidity, which causes many diseases such as skin rash, itching, redness, and swelling, especially among children and the elderly. Houthi continue to hold summer camps and infect the minds of the youth with their sectarian ideology. Rights group warned of those camps, adding that the Houthis use them as recruitment stations of child soldiers. This report has more details.
The recruitment of children as soldiers in Yemen could be one of the worst situations in the country. In April, the Houthi, who are supported by Iran, announced summer camp programs for children to be launched in Sana'a and other northern governorates. The group added that more than 700,000 boy and girl students joined these camps, which are held during the summer holidays between the school seasons. The use of these poor children as human shields will prevent their nation from developing a modern economy that can ensure a decent standard of living and protect their rights. It is clear that the goal of these camps is to change the ideology of children and how they think. Houthis have started instructing children as young as 10 years old in religious teaching and identity. The number of male and female students in these summer programs reached 1.5 million. Houthi media sites regularly post images and videos of children shouting Houthi slogans and discussing war and fighting fronts, which shows that Houthis do not appear to want to keep this from people. The UN indicates that approximately 4 million children have lost their access to an education, and this figure could rise to 6 million. This will cause serious challenges in Yemen's society and neighboring countries in terms of security, stability, and peace over the next decades. Children have paid a heavy price for being pushed to the front lines by the manipulation of invested leaders, financial need, tribal solidarity, and other factors. This cost will keep rising for years to come and will have an impact on Yemeni society as a whole. Since the start of the Yemeni conflict in 2014, child recruiting has become particularly common among conflict groups. Children being recruited for military service in Yemen is a serious issue for both peace and fundamental human rights.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The United Nations accuses Houthi of targeting Baha'i minority and spreading hate speech against them. On National Press Day, Yemeni journalists continue to face oppression and harassment nationwide. Diseases hit displaced camps in Ma'rib amid lack of healthcare services. This is the end of the news. It was Abir Ali, and thank you for watching.